إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله فبلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد، أهلا وسهلا ويا مرحبا أيها الإخوة والأخوات، حياكم الله وبارك فيكم. The topic for tonight is that hadith wherein the 11 women spoke about their husbands. That hadith which is well known as the hadith of Zar'. Zar'. Hadith that is well known as hadith Zar'. Well known amongst the muhaddithin. From the muhaddithin were those who authored specifically concerning this hadith. Wrote a complete book concerning this hadith. From them Al-Qadi Iyad. He wrote a book specifically about this hadith. And the name of that book was بغية الرائد لما تضمنه حديث زرع من الفوائد. And likewise, Ibn Nasr al-Din al-Damashqi, he also authored a book specifically on this tremendous hadith. And he titled that book ريع الفرع في شرح حديث زرع, and also others. But what we're going to do tonight, بإذن الله وبعونه, is we're going to have a quick listen to the translation of the hadith, which is a lengthy hadith. It's a lengthy hadith. We're going to try to look at quick, rough translation of the hadith without spending too much time on looking at the Arabic language in and of itself. And although the language used in the hadith is amazing, and the scholars say that the language that was used in this hadith was to an amazing level, a high level, to the extent that some of these scholars who wrote about this hadith or explained this hadith, they focused on, in their book, they focused a part of their book on just explaining the words of this hadith. Those words in the Arabic language. Many of the scholars who explained this hadith specifically had to go into detail and explain the difficult words found in this hadith. However, we're going to have a brief look, and then we'll look at some of the benefits, just some of the benefits, which I summarized from the explanations of the A'imma, such as Al-Qadi Iyad, likewise Ibn Nasr al-Din, also Ibn Hajar, Ibn Uthaymeen, Sheikh Abdul Muhsin, and others from the Mashayikh. In this hadith, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she relates how there were 11 women who gathered and agreed to conceal nothing, not to conceal anything about their husbands, and to speak the truth about their husbands, whether that involved praise or criticism. And so from these women were those who mentioned their husbands with only praises. From them who mentioned their husbands, described their husbands with nothing but criticism and dispraise. From them, those who described their husbands with praise and dispraise. And so Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she narrates the hadith, and the hadith is in Al-Bukhari and Muslim, in the Sahih of Imam Al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim and others. Aisha radiallahu anha, she says, جلس 11 امرأة. 11 women, they sat together. جلس 11 امرأة فتعاهدن وتعاقدن. They came together and they agreed and they promised ألا يكتمن من أخبار أزواجهن شيئا. They promised and agreed that they would not conceal anything about the news of their husbands. قالت الأولى. And so the first one she said, زوجي لحم جمل غث على رأس جبل وعر لا سهل فيرتقى ولا سمين فينتقل. She said that my husband is like the meat of a lean camel placed at the top of a hill. لا سهل فيرتقى, which is difficult to climb up. The mountain is difficult to climb up. ولا سمين فينتقل, nor does the meat have any fat. Meaning it's not good enough that one would go up the mountain and go through that pain and that struggle of climbing the mountain in order to fetch the meat. And so here this first wife, she mentions that her husband, as it relates to how he is with her, قليل الخير, there is no good in him or very little good in him. قليل النفع. This is the example she's given through the example that she struck. قليل النفع, very little benefit. قلة الإحسان, and he is not good to her, or if he is good to her, it's very little. And so this wife, she dispraised her husband. قالت الثانية, the second wife, she said, زوجي لا أبث خبره إني أخاف ألا أذر إن أذكره أذكر أجرة وبجرة. She says that my husband, I shall not relate his news. I shall not tell you about him. Meaning he is so bad. إني أخاف ألا أذر. He is so bad that I'm afraid that I will not be able to finish his story. إن أذكره أذكر أجره وبجره. If I did mention his faults, then I would mention both his open and hidden faults. And all of this would take a great deal of time. And so this wife, she describes her husband as being كثير المعايب, having many faults. And she says that if I was to open this door of speaking about him, then I won't be able to stop, due to the great amount of faults found within him. And so she sufficed with mentioning him in a general way and describing him in a general way. And again, this wife, she describes her husband with dispraise and nothing else. قالت الثالثة, the third one, she said, زوجي العشنق إن أنطق أطلق وإن أسقط أعلق. My husband العشنق, which means extremely tall, meaning tall beyond that which is reasonable or that which is praiseworthy, meaning it's a type of tall that is blameworthy. It's extremely tall. إن أنطق أطلق. If I say anything about him, he will divorce me. وإن أسقط أعلق. And if I keep quiet, he will neither divorce me nor treat me as a wife and how a wife should be treated. أعلق. And the meaning of أعلق is to be that which is suspended. So you have the ceiling and the ground, that which is in between the ceiling and the ground. Like the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala where He says, وَلَن تستطيعوا أن تعدلوا بين النساء ولو حرصتم. That you will never be able to be just with your wives, even if you were eager to do that. فَلَا تَمِيلُوا كُلَّ الْمَيْلِ. فَلَا تَمِيلُ كُلَّ الْمَيْلِ فَتَذَرُوهَا كَالْمُعَلَّقَةِ. And so don't incline towards one more than the other wife. فَتَذَرُوهَا كَالْمُعَلَّقَةِ. And so then you leave her suspended. Meaning, one who, she's not divorced, so she's stuck with you. She's not divorced and she can't go and marry someone else. But at the same time, although she's married to you, it's almost like she's not married because she didn't get treated like a wife. So this wife also, she criticizes her husband in a severe way, that he is too tall in a blameworthy way. And not just that, but also that is coupled with su'at tasarruf, with bad dealings. And she's saying that if I was to confront him about anything, he will divorce me. And if I stay quiet, then I am like mu'allaqa, that which hangs between the ceiling and the ground. And as we said, between being married and being divorced. Neither one of the two. قالت الرابعة, the fourth one, she said, زوجي كليل تحامة لا حر ولا قر ولا مخافة ولا سآمة. The fourth wife, she said, my husband is like the night of Tihama. The night of Tihama, أيها الأخوة والأخوات, is a place of low altitude between the Red Sea, Al-Bahr al-Ahmar, and the mountains of Hijaz and Yemen. Meaning, the weather there is not too cold, neither is it too warm. Mu'tadil. Not too hot, neither is it too cold. It's average, a nice temperature. وَلَا مَخَافَةَ وَلَا سَآمَةَ. Neither is there any fear of him, nor blandness. Meaning she doesn't get bored of him. She's not scared of him, neither does she get bored of him. So she describes her husband with al-i'tidal, with being just and being balanced, and that she isn't scared of him, neither does she get bored of him. And so with this description she praises her husband, the fourth one. قالت الخامسة, the fifth one, she said, زوجي إن دخل فهد وإن خرج أسد ولا يسأل عما أحد. That my husband is like a leopard when he enters the house. وإذا خرج أسد. And if he leaves the house, he's like a lion. ولا يسأل عما أحد. Nor does he ask about anything which he leaves in the house. Most of the scholars here, when they explain this hadith, then they held this description of this woman describing her husband to be a description of praise. Meaning when he enters the house, he enters like a leopard, in the sense that he is noble and kind towards her. And he lives with her in a good manner. And when he leaves the house ka'asad, like a lion, meaning he's brave. He doesn't fear. He goes out into the world and he's brave and he doesn't fear. وَلَا يَسْأَلْ عَمَّا أَحِدٍ. Meaning he is musamih. Meaning he pardons a lot. He doesn't ask about the things in the house. He doesn't say, why is this like this and why is that like that? Why is this like this? Why is the food gone bad? Why is this? Why is that? He doesn't do any of that. So he's musamih. He pardons a lot. He overlooks. He pardons. He doesn't ask about why things are like this and like that. He doesn't blame. When he sees something deficient, or something that's gone bad, he doesn't start to blame her, but rather he pardons her. However, from the scholars were those who took this description to be a dispraise of her, to be a dispraise of her husband, or that some of it is praise and some of it is dispraise. And so when he leaves the house like a lion, this is a praise. Those who said that this description, some of it is praise, some of it is dispraise, criticism, then they said that when she said he leaves the house like a lion, then that's a praise. That he goes out and he's brave. But when he enters the house like a leopard, that this is a dispraise. That he goes to his resting place and that's all he does. That he doesn't do anything else except for sleep. And so when this man, when he comes home, he doesn't even look at his wife. He just comes home to sleep. وَلَا يَسْأَلْ عَمَّا أَحِدٍ. Neither does he ask about anything in the house. Meaning, this is a criticism. So some of the scholars, they said that this is a criticism. That he doesn't care. He doesn't ask, do you need anything in the house? He doesn't ask about the hawaij and the needs of the wife. He doesn't ask about her health. The children, he doesn't ask. وَلَا يَسْأَلْ عَمَّا أَحِدٍ. He doesn't ask about those things. However, the majority, they hold this to be a praise for the husband. Some of them, they explained it in a different way. That when he comes home like a leopard, meaning he has relations with his wife, and so that's a praise. He doesn't turn away from her. And that's a lengthy topic concerning this particular wife and how she described her husband. But the majority held it to be a praise. قالت السادسة, the sixth wife, she said, زوجي إن أكل لف وإن شرب اشتف وإن اتجع التف ولا يولج الكف ليعلم البث. The sixth wife, she said, my husband, when he eats so much that he leaves nothing. وإن شرب اشتف. Likewise, when he drinks, he doesn't leave anything behind. وإن اتجع التف. And when he lies down, he wraps his body. ولا يولج الكف ليعلم البث. Nor does he reach out to touch me, to see and to know my grief. Meaning he doesn't stretch out his hand to know how I am and how I feel. And so this wife, she dispraises her husband. This husband doesn't care about anything except for his belly and his sleep. And he's not concerned about living with his wife in kindness and goodness. قالت السابعة, the seventh wife. She said, زوجي غياياو أو عياياو طبقاء كل داء له داء شجك أو فلك أو جمع كلا لك. And my husband is a foolish, evil man. Absolutely stupid. كل داء له داء. Every disease there is out there, then it is found in him. شجك أو فلك أو جمع كلا لك. He is so rough that he may hit you on your head, cause some wound to your head, crack your head, cause you to bleed, or wound your body, hit you in your body. Or جمع كلا لك, or do both of them. Beat you in your head and beat you in your body. So this wife, she says that every possible defect and this disease you can think of, then it is present in my husband. And on top of that, he beats her. قالت الثامنة, the eighth one, she said, زوجي المس مس أرنب والريح الريح زرنب. That my husband, المس يعني مسه مس أرنب, that his touch is soft as a rabbit, is as soft as a rabbit. والريح الريح زرنب, and his scent is as sweet as zarnab, which is a aromatic plant, sweet smelling plant. Meaning that he always has a nice scent. So this wife, she describes her husband, she doesn't describe her husband except with good. That his body is soft, he's always clean, and his scent is one that is always pleasant. And this also includes the praise of his good dealings and how he lives with her in kindness and so on. The ninth one, she said, زوجي رفيع العماد طويل النجاد عظيم الرماد قريب البيت من الناد. That my husband, رفيع العماد, meaning he is the owner of a high standing tent, meaning due to the number of guests that he hosts, that he has a high standing tent, meaning he's very hospitable. He's very hospitable. And he always invites guests. He's midiyaf. And he's very hospitable. Very hospitable. طويل النجاد. That his sheath, meaning that sheath, that strap where he puts his sword in, is tawil. It's long. That sheath where he keeps his sword is long. Meaning, either he is brave, and so he carries a long sword, or that he is tall. It's a praise for a man who is tall. Because a short man doesn't carry a long sword. But a tall man, he carries a tall sword. Azim al-Ramad. He has heaps of ashes due to the fire that is always burning from him serving guests. There's always ashes around from the fire, been burning fires for his guests. قريب البيت من الناد, and his house is near to where the people meet. Meaning he purposefully chose to live near the people. So when the people come to the town, that they always see his house, and the people who travel by and come to the village or to the town, that he's able to host them and be hospitable to them. So all of this, ayyuhal ikhwa, is a description of praise for this husband, that he is noble and he is generous and a good man to live with. قالت العاشرة, the 10th wife, she said, زوجي مالك وما مالك مالك خير من ذلك. She said, my husband is Malik. وما مالك, and how fine is Malik? Or, what will inform you of Malik? What will tell you about Malik? Malik خير من ذلك. Malik is better than that. Meaning, Malik is better than what comes to your minds. Or, it can be understood that Malik is better than the 9th woman, than the 9th description that the woman gave of her husband, of the man before. Malik khayr min dhalik, meaning from the description of the man just before. Or that he is better than what I'm going to describe you, how I'm going to describe him to you. Meaning I'm not able to truly describe him and do justice. And also another meaning, that Malik, Zawji Malik, Wama Malik, meaning the actual meaning of the word Malik, that my husband, he owns something, possesses something great. Wama Malik, and what does he possess? What does he possess? That's another meaning that can take. له إبل كثيرات المبارك قليلات المصارح وإذا سمعنا صوت المزهر أيقن أنهن حوالك. That he has many camels that stay knelt down in their resting place. قليلات المصارح, meaning very, very little do they actually go out to graze the land. Why? Because he's always slaughtering the animals for his guests. He's always slaughtering the camels for his guests. Again, a noble man, hospitable man. وَإِذَا سَمِعْنَا صَوْتَ الْمِزْهَرِ أَيْقَنَّ أَنَّهُنَّ هَوَالِكَ. The camels, if they hear the mizhar, it's an instrument. The mizhar is an instrument that he would use, a musical instrument that he would use to order that one of the camels should be slaughtered. So what the wife is saying here, إِذَا سَمِعْنَا صَوْتَ الْمِزْهَرِ أَيْقَنَ أَنَّهُنَّ حَوَالِكَ. That the camels, if they hear the instrument, then they are sure that they're going to be hawalik, slaughtered. They're going to be slaughtered. Something that the camels got used to. قالت الحادية عشرة. قالت الحادية عشرة. The 11th wife. The 11th wife. She said, زوجي أبو زرع فما أبو زرع. My husband is Abu Zar'. How fine is Abu Zar'? What will tell you about Abu Zar'? أناس من حلي أذني وملأ من شحم عضدي. That he has hung ornaments on my ears, and وملأ من شحم عضدي, and he has filled my bones. He has filled my bones, my muscles with fat, meaning he has fed me generously and abundantly. فبجحني فبجحت إلي نفسي. And he has pleased me, and so I became happy and pleased. وجدني في أهل غنيمة بشق. He found me amongst a family of shepherds living by the mountains in difficulty. Meaning he found me in hardship and in poverty. فجعلني في أهل صحيل وعطيط ودائس ومنق. And he made me the owner of horses and camels and land and heaps of grain and much wealth. فعنده أقول فلا أقبح وأرقد فأتصبح وأشرب فأتنقح. When I speak, so when I'm in his presence, I speak, and I am not rebuked by him. He allows me to speak, and he listens to me. He doesn't rebuke me, like some husbands may. They don't listen to their wives. I sleep and I wake up and drink to my heart's content. Abi Zar', fama Abi Zar'. And so now she begins to explain and describe the mother of Abu Zar'. She says, the mother of Abu Zar'. How fine is the mother of Abu Zar'? أقومه رداح. أقومها رداح. وبيتها فصاح. That her saddlebags are wide and heavy, meaning she has lots of possessions. She has lots of possessions within these bags, meaning she's rich and well off. And her house is spacious, meaning, again, she is hospitable. And some of the scholars, they mentioned that is due to Abu Zar' being good to his mother, being good to his mother. And even the name Abu Zar', as some of the scholars, they mention that the wife, she chose to name her husband with the kunya of Abu Zar'. And even Zar' itself is a praiseworthy word. Praiseworthy word. The one who sows and seeds. Meaning that even those around him, he has a positive effect on them. He has a positive effect even on his mother. And she's going to go on to explain the son of Abu Zar' and even the daughter of Abu Zar'. She continues, the wife, and she explains. She says, Ibn Abi Zar', fama Ibn Abi Zar', the son of Abu Zar'. How fine is the son of Abu Zar'? متجعه كمسل شطبة ويشبعه ذراع الجفرة. That his bed is soft and narrow. His bed that he sleeps on is soft and narrow. ويشبعه ذراع الجفرة. And just a foreleg of a lamb is enough to satisfy him. Meaning he is simple. He is simple and doesn't ask for much. The son of Abu Zar'. And so that tarbiyah, that nurturing that he had from Abu Zar' was a praiseworthy upbringing. Bintu Abi Zar'. Fama bintu Abi Zar'. The daughter of Abu Zar'. How fine is the daughter of Abu Zar'? طوع أبيها وطوع أمها وملء كسائها وغيظ جارتها. She's obedient to her father. She's obedient to Abu Zar', her father. Obedient to her mother. She fills her clothes, meaning she's not skinny. She's fed well and looked after. وغيظ جارتها. And she causes her co-wife to become jealous and angry. She causes her co-wife her co-wife to become jealous and angry. جارية أبي زرع. فما جارية أبي زرع. The housemaid of Abu Zar'. How fine is the housemaid of Abu Zar'. لا تبث حديثنا تبثيثا ولا تنقث ميرتنا تنقيثا. She doesn't disclose our affairs to other people. She doesn't talk about our affairs and things that go on in our house to people outside of our house. Nor does she take anything from our provisions and squander it and waste it. ولا تملأ بيتنا تعشيشا. And she doesn't let the house fill up with rubbish, but rather she is concerned with keeping the house clean and tidy. قالت. And so now the wife she says,
الله أكبر والله أكبر. الله أكبر والله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر والله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
قالت. So the wife now she says, after describing Abu Zar', describing his mother and those close to him, قالت خرج أبو زرع والأوطاب تمخض. One day Abu Zar', he went out of his house when the milk was being churned in the vessels, meaning when the animals were being milked. And some say that what's intended by mentioning this is that he went out early in the morning when the workers they milk the animals. Others say that it's an expression to mention the time of spring. At the time, in summary, at the time that it was a time when Abu Zar he went out. It was a time when the animals were being milked. فلقي امرأة معها ولدان لها كالفحدين يلعبان من تحت خصرها برمانتين. So when the animals were being milked at this time of the year or this time of the day, that he saw a woman. He saw a woman who she was from those who were milking the animals. And she became tired and she lay down. And she had with her two boys with her. كالفحدين, like two leopards, cubs. يلعبان من تحت خصرها برمانتين. And they were playing with her chest under her vest. And so when Abu Zar' he saw this, he was put to trial by this woman. And so he saw this woman, and his heart got attached to this woman, to this other woman. فطلقني فنقحها. So he divorced me and married that woman. فنكحت بعده رجلا سريا ركب شريا وأخذ خطية. And I married. So after this, after Abu Zar' divorced me, I married another man. Who was a nobleman. He was a nobleman. And ركب شرية, he was a fine horseman. And a fine spearman. And he was brave and he was a fighter. وأراها على نعم ثرية علي وأراها علي نعم ثرية. And he gave me many gifts. Red camels. The explanation. He gave me red camels. As is known, Humr al-Na'am, from the most prized possessions in that time. or in some of the times of old. وأعطاني من كل من رائحة زوجة, and he gave me a pair of every kind of animal, and said, وقال كلي زرع وميري أهلك. He said, eat زرع, eat, and send some to your family, meaning he was good also to her family. قالت, and so she said, and we're coming towards the end of the hadith. She said, فلو جمعت كل شيء أعطاني ما بلغ أصغر آنية أبي زرع. This second husband, that if I was to combine everything he gave me, the second husband, that it wouldn't compare to even the smallest vessel of Abu Zar'. And so then Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, فقال لي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, and so the messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said to me, كنت لك كأبي زرع لأم زرع, that I am to you like Abu Zar' was to Zar', meaning this 11th wife who explained her husband with nothing but praise. In fact, some of the scholars mentioned that she went to mubalagha, exaggeration. That the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he turned to Aisha radiallahu anha and said, I am to you just as Abu Zar' was to Zar'. Firstly, ayyuhal ikhwa, many benefits. I don't think we're going to be able to go through all the benefits. Firstly, the hadith was recorded by Al-Bukhari and Muslim and Imam al-Nasa'i, al-Tirmidhi in his Ash-Shama'il, and At-Tabarani and Ibn Hibban and others. Al-Bukhari narrates his hadith in Kitab al-Nikah, in the book of marriage, under the chapter Husnul Ma'ashara Ma'al Ahl, living in kindness and goodness with one's wife, one's family, one's wife. And that is clear, ayyuhal ikhwa, from this hadith. We don't need to go back to the hadith itself or any particular part in the hadith. But even if you go back to just the explanation of Abu Zar' and how he was, that it's clear why Imam al-Bukhari brought this hadith under this chapter. How we are to live with kindness and goodness with our wives. Imam Muslim, he narrates this hadith in Kitab Fada'il al-Sahaba, in the book of the virtues of the companions. And he brings it under the Fada'il of Aisha radiallahu anha, the virtues of Aisha. And he brings it right at the end, after mentioning all of those ahadith in the chapter of the virtues of Aisha. He brings it right at the end. And Ibn Nasr al-Din al-Damashqi, he mentions in this book, he mentions that in this, he mentioned this as the second point of benefit. It brings many benefits. And he says that in this is الدلالة على فضل عائشة وعلمها وجودة حفظها وسرعة فهمها. This hadith shows, that's why Imam Muslim brought it here under the chapter of virtues of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. It shows the virtues of Aisha and the level of her hifz, of her memorization. This hadith, ayyuhal ikhwa, wallahi, I spent just a week just on the words of this hadith, on the words, just going through the different books, the explanations, difficult words, ayyuhal ikhwa, very difficult. In fact, if you look to some of the translations of this word, of this hadith, you'll find that even in the English translations that are out there, in Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, contradictions between the translators. Very difficult. A person needs to go back to the A'immah and the scholars who explain these words. Very difficult, very high level. Even the lughaw, not just the muhaddithin, who this hadith is well known amongst the muhaddithin, the scholars of hadith. But not just them. It's also well known to the lughawiyin, to the linguistics. They refer back to this hadith. This shows the virtues of Aisha and the hifz, her memorization, and how fast she was in her understanding. Imam al-Nasa'i, he records this hadith under the chapter شكر المرأة لزوجها, that a woman, how she should thank her husband, show her gratefulness to her husband. And he brings this hadith. That's Imam al-Nasa'i. Imam al-Tirmidhi, he brings this hadith under the chapter Bab Kalami Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam fi samar. The chapter of how the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would speak to his wives fi samar. Samar, ayyuhal ikhwa, is to speak after Isha. Speech after Isha, that time of Isha. Imam al-Tirmidhi, he brings it here to show the permissibility of speaking with one's wife after Isha. Because some of the narrations mention that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he entered upon his wives after Isha, and he mentioned this hadith. And that he heard this hadith, or he heard Aisha radiallahu anha. We can talk about that, whether the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is the one who described the 11 women, or it was Aisha. However, speech took place, and it was after Isha. Because there's the hadith where the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, لا سمر إلا لمصل أو مسافر. That there is no samara, meaning no speech after Isha. No speech after Isha, not to talk after Isha, except for the one who is in prayer, or musafir, or the one who is a traveler. So, question. So, if there is no speech, question, ayyuhal ikhwa, there is no speech after Isha, so why is the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam here now talking with his wife after Isha? Exception? Rukhsah? Ahsant. It's a rukhsah. The scholars mention that this hadith, or those ahadith, where the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, many other ahadith, no time to bring all those ahadith, but other ahadith where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would discourage talking after Isha. However, the scholars mention that this is karahiyya, disliked, makruh. It's not something that is haram, but it's disliked. And this shows how it's allowed when one talks to his wife after Isha. Also in the hadith where Umar ibn Khattab, where he explained and he said, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يسمر مع أبي بكر في أمر من أمر المسلمين وأنا معهم. That the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم used to yasmur, meaning he used to talk after Isha with Abu Bakr concerning an affair from the affairs of the Muslims, وَأَنَا مَعَهُمْ, and I was with them. Which shows that it's permissible. Permissible, it's not haram. It's disliked if there's no need, but it's permissible. So the scholars say, if a person, for example, for seeking knowledge, it's allowed. If you have guests, or to talk about an important matter. And, like Imam al-Tirmidhi, he brings here, one talking with his wife at home. And Isha kicks in very early in this country, certain times of the year. It'll be very difficult for you to go from like 6 o'clock onwards and not talk, not say anything. So the scholars, they say here that it's something which is disliked and not haram. Imam al-Tirmidhi, he brings this hadith to show that it's permissible to speak to one's wife, and also after Isha, and also it shows us the akhlaq and the adab, and the mannerisms of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with his wives, even if their speech is long, because his hadith is long. You guys probably have to be patient with me going through the hadith. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was patient with his wives. And he listened, all of this, he listened to it. All of it, he listened to it. And so, we learn from that we should listen, we should spend time and listen to our wives. And many of us will fall short in many of these affairs, ayyul ikhwa. And so we should take heed from the benefits from this hadith. In this hadith, we see how the Prophet ﷺ would make them feel good, make his wives feel good, and comfort them with good words. How he was jestful, playful with his wives, as opposed to the one who doesn't listen to his wife, nor is he concerned with being friendly with her, being kind to her. There has come, ayyuhal ikhwa, in some of the ahadith, the sabab of this hadith, the reason behind this hadith. Like An-Nisa'i and Ibn Habban and others, that the Prophet ﷺ, he entered upon some of his wives. And he said to Aisha radiallahu anha, so he started by saying, Ya Aisha, kuntu laki ka Abi Zar' li Ummi Zar'. That I am, O Aisha, I am to you how Abu Zar' was with Zar'. And so then Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, Ya Rasulullah, man Abu Zar'? Who is Abu Zar'? And so then the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he explained the 11 women coming together and the hadith. However, there's a difference of opinion, ayyuhal ikhwa, concerning this, whether the story of the 11 women was from the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam or the words of Aisha. Now, there is something that is well known amongst the terminology of the scholars of hadith, that if the wording is the wording of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then we say that hadith is marfu'. Hadith is marfu', meaning raised to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he is from his word, from his actions. Or any hadith where there's a description, any hadith with a description of the actions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or his statements, then that is a hadith which is marfu', meaning marfu' to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Something that he did or something that he said. However, if it's something that the Sahaba, they did or something that they said, then that is a hadith that is mawquf. It's mawquf. We don't say it's marfu', we say it's mawquf. That it's not the statement of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or his actions, but it's the statement or the actions of the Sahaba. And so, in this story, that there are those from the scholars who say that the speech and the description of the 11 women, describing their wives, their husbands, afwan, is that it's the speech of Aisha radiallahu anha, not the speech of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Except for when the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said at the end, kuntu laki ka Abi Zar' li Ummi Zar', that I am to you how Abu Zar' was to Zar'. However, as for the 11 women, or the description of the 11 women, that Ibn Hajar here, he mentions a very beautiful point. He says that the more authentic narrations, they describe how it was the speech of Aisha. The speech of Aisha. In Sahih Bukhari, in Sahih Muslim. However, he mentions a very beautiful point. He says that the fact that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that at the end of the hadith, or at the end of the description, he said that I am to you like Abu Zar was to Zar', that he must have either he himself explained the hadith, explained the story, and was aware of it himself, or he heard it and affirmed it. Because it's not possible, and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would not liken himself to Abu Zar' if he wasn't aware of who Abu Zar' was. He wouldn't liken himself to someone if he wasn't aware of the story of Abu Zar'. So now Ibn Hajar says that, so it takes the hukm, it's a hadith which lafdhan in its words is mawquf, meaning the words of the companion, Aisha in this case, radiyallahu anha. But hukman, it is marfu'. But its ruling is that it is marfu', raised to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so that's a nice point that he brings. And there's no difference that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, he said the last part, that I am to you how Abu Zar' was to Zar'. As for the 11 women, then in some narrations, like the one we just mentioned, in An-Nisa'i and Ibn Habban and others, that after Aisha radiallahu anha, she asked the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Who is Abu Zar? That the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he said, اجتمع نسوة من قريش بمكة 11 امرأة. So if you want to know about the 11 women, in this hadith, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he said that they gathered 11 women from Mecca. So now here we know that they were from Mecca. Some narrations from Jahiliyyah, the pre-Islamic days of ignorance. In one wording, إن قرية من قرى اليمن كانت فيها 11 امرأة. That they were from Yemen. However, this is not really that important. Some narrations even mention, like Al-Khatib and Imam al-Nawawi, they even bring a hadith wherein there is a mention of the names of some of the wives, some of the women. But that is not something that is really important. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, he says that it is necessary that we know that the nisa دائما في أكثر جلوسهن يتكلمن في هذه الأمور. That most of the women, when they're in their gatherings, that they talk about these affairs. He says لأن أغلى شيء عند المرأة زوجها. That the most dear thing and the most expensive thing to the woman is her husband, or from the most valuable things to her. He says that it is and he asks a question. Ibn Uthaymeen, he puts a question forward when he explained this hadith. He said, is it better that if a husband has some bad trait, that a woman, she makes it clear to others, or that she conceals it, that she starts to speak about her husband, about his bad traits? He says that the origin is that it is obligatory to conceal the faults. So the woman, she doesn't conceal the faults of her husband. However, if she sees that there's a benefit in her telling someone, like her mother or her elder sister, in order for her to ask them to advise her husband, then that is something which is allowed, and there's no harm in that. And on this point, some of the scholars, they mention here that regarding these women talking about their husbands, that this was not considered as backbiting, because the husbands were not known by person and by name. The husbands were not mentioned, their names. And even the wives, that Aisha radiallahu anha, when she was explaining this, there was no mention of who these women are. Unknown, and unknown who their husbands are. And due to the Prophet ﷺ hearing this story and not rejecting it, that this is backbiting, he didn't say that. Rather, he approved of it. It's permissible for a woman, or it's permissible that that if she was to go to a judge, and bring the case of her husband forward, that in that situation she's allowed to mention these bad traits of her husband. Or likewise, if she's going to seek a fatwa, a ruling. In this hadith, ayyul ikhwa, is an encouragement for a man to relax himself with his wife, to jest with her and to play with her. And it shows that it is permissible for the husband and wife to make clear their love for one another. That the husband can say to his wife how much he loves her. Likewise, the wife, she can say this to her husband, so long as that doesn't lead to anything impermissible, and that they now exaggerate with one another. Also in this hadith is a proof for the husband and the wife to speak to each other about those affairs that are mubah, allowed. Those things that again don't lead to anything haram or anything impermissible. We learn from this hadith that it is allowed for a man to mention to his wife and to remind his wife of how good he is to her. And a husband, he's allowed to remind his wife and remind her how good he is with her, the things that he does for her. Likewise, it is permissible for a woman to talk about her husband, so long as she doesn't describe him in a way that now it becomes haram. And that the husband himself should be unknown to whoever she is describing him. She is describing him to. Some of the scholars, they mention from this hadith that we learn that true love for someone hides displaying the faults of that person. Because Abu Zar', even though he divorced Zar', his wife, this didn't prevent her from saying anything bad about him. Rather, she had nothing but good to say about him, even after he divorced her. To the point that she even went to exaggeration. And that is something praiseworthy, no doubt, ayyul ikhwa. For Zar', she was divorced. And even that didn't prevent her from praising him. Also, what we learn from this hadith is that the one who likens himself to someone else, that it doesn't necessitate that there is complete resemblance from every angle. And the Prophet ﷺ, he is far better than Abu Zar'. Far better than Abu Zar'. But he likened himself to Abu Zar'. And in one particular wording, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, after he said, Kuntu lak ka Abi Zar' li ummi Zar', and I am to you how Abu Zar' was to Zar', that he said, that Aisha radiallahu anha, she said after this, she said, Bi abi anta wa ummi, anta khayrun min Abi Zar'. That may my father and mother be a ransom for you. So that you are far better than Abu Zar'. And this shows the permissibility of praising another person to his face. Permissible to praise another person to his face, if that doesn't lead to him taking that in a negative way and it corrupting that person. Like in the hadith also, in that hadith where the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he said, Ya Abul Munzir, he said, Ya Abul Munzir, أتدري أي آية في كتاب الله معك أعظم? He said, Oh Abul Munzir, do you know which verse in the Quran is the greatest verse in the Quran with you, meaning from that which you have memorized, and that which you have with you from Quran? He said, Allah wa Rasuluhu a'lam. He said, Allah wa Rasuluhu a'lam. And so then, the Messenger of Allah, he asked him again. Ya Abul Munzir, أتدري أي آية في كتاب الله معك أعظم? The scholars mention that this is from the ways of the Messenger of Allah that when he would teach his companions, he would ask them more than once. And he would put questions forward. He would put questions forward because it's better for those who are learning, and it's more likely to stick with them when you ask a person a question. So then at the second time, Abul Munzir, he said, Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum, Ayatul Kursi. Then after that, the Messenger of Allah he said, Abul Munzir, he said, so the Messenger of Allah darabani, that he struck me on my chest. And he said, لِيَحْنَكَ الْإِلْمِ, and he praised him for that knowledge that he had. So he praised him to his face. It's permissible to praise someone, like here, in this hadith, the hadith in discussion, to praise someone to his face, so long as that praise doesn't lead to anything that will cause that person to become corrupt. Scholars mention a very fine point here, ayyul ikhwa. And that is when the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he likened himself to Abu Zar'. And you should know that here, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he likened himself as it relates to Abu Zar', as it relates to his dealings and his treatment. And that husnul ma'ashara with one's wife. That's how he likened himself. As we know, the Messenger of Allah was far better than Abu Zar'. He is Sayyid Walid Adam. He is the best of mankind. But here the scholars mention a fine point here. And they say that although the Messenger of Allah he likened himself to to Abu Zar, that this doesn't include resembling oneself in every way, when you resemble yourself to someone. Because it's well known that from the dealings and treatment of Abu Zar with Zar is that he divorced her. However, when the Messenger of Allah, when he said, Kuntu laki ka Abi Zar, li Zar, that doesn't mean that the divorce now will occur. It doesn't mean that talaq now yaqa', that the divorce occurs. That also from me saying that I'm divorcing you. It doesn't mean that. In fact, in a wording, the Messenger of Allah he said, إِنَّهُ طَلَّقَهَا wa inni la utalliquk. That he divorced her, Abu Zar divorced Zar, but I won't divorce you. In this hadith, we also learn that a woman should give thanks to her husband. She should give thanks to her husband. And An-Nisa'i, he brings this hadith under the chapter, as we mentioned before, Shukr al-Mar'a Zawjaha. Shukr al-Mar'a Zawjaha. Or li Zawjiha. That the woman, she should be grateful to her husband. And she should thank him. And he also brings this hadith, and he brings another hadith also in that chapter. لا ينظر الله إلى امرأة لا تشكر زوجها وهي لا تستغني عنه. Allah will not look to a woman who doesn't thank her husband. وهي لا تستغني عنه. At the same time, she can't do without him. In this hadith, shows to us the fitna of women. That Abu Zar was put to trial, ayyul ikhwa, by this woman, by this other woman, who he eventually married and divorced Zar, his first wife. And it's mentioned in some narrations that Abu Zar later on, annahu nadim, he felt regret. That first wife. How many brothers they say after they divorce the first wife, get married again? Nothing like the first wife. So the fitna of women, ayyul ikhwa, Some scholars they mention that although to the second husband in this hadith, Zar', who went on to marry another husband, another man, who she also described in a praiseworthy, nothing but praise. That some of them they mention and they bring this statement, which is كل بدل أعور. Every replacement is a'war. Meaning every replacement is bad compared to that which it replaces. It's not the same. In the wording of An-Nisa'i, that Zar', she said afterwards, فَاسْتَبْدَلْتُ وَكُلُّ بَدَلٍ أَعْوَرٍ. That so I changed, I married another man. وَكُلُّ بَدَلٍ أَعْوَرٍ. And every replacement it's bad, it's not the same. However, Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, he mentions a beautiful, nice point, and he says that that's not a general rule to take. It's not always the case. Sometimes the badal can be afdal and ahsan, because how fine as a replacement was the Messenger of Allah ﷺ for Salima, for Abu Salima, that she married the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, and he was the best of replacements. Many benefits, ayyul ikhwa, many benefits, too many to mention here, but the general reminder, ayyul ikhwa, from this tremendous hadith is that the husband and the wife should live with each other in goodness and kindness. Many of us, including myself, we fall short in this, ayyul ikhwa. How easy is it for a person to receive those rewards. All of us, we want Jannah and those rewards. We think that reward is in seeking knowledge, in giving da'wah, in ibadah, standing in prayer, giving in charity and going on Hajj and Umrah. But we forget about the closest thing to us, just putting something in your wife's mouth, feeding her, being kind to her, just saying a kind word, just listening to her, as we learn from this hadith, just listening to her. That there is reward in that, ayyul ikhwa. Many of us, including myself, we forget that. And we learn this from just the last part of the hadith. The best example from all of those husbands that were described was the example of Abu Zar'. And that's why the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he likened himself to Abu Zar'. But the best example, no doubt, above and beyond Abu Zar' was our Messenger Muhammad ﷺ. And that is why the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he said, خيركم خيركم لأهله. That the best of you are the best of you to your families. وَأَنَا خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِي. And I am the best of you to my family, to my wives. So, I remind the brothers and myself who are married, and those who inshallah plan to get married, that they keep this hadith of Zar' the forefront of our heads, and we try to live with our wives with husn al-ma'ashara, with in goodness and kindness. وفق الله الجميع لما يحبه ويرضاه وصلى الله عليه وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.